Go Raintown! What's up, guys? Thanks for showing up to another episode of Talking Raintown. You guys ready?
We're ready.
Today we're going to talk about how to write up a winning offer. First of all, what's a winning offer?
The one that gets accepted?
Yeah, when your client gets what they want.
Yeah? When they get what they want? Yeah. What if they want to get it for $500 and they can't get it for $500?
Then that's not a winning offer.
That's right. It's just maybe it's a winning offer to them, right? Because maybe they didn't want to pay $505, right? So winning offer is in the eyes of the beholder. That make sense? I think a lot of times us as agents get really into the competitiveness, especially with multiple offer situations, right? We're trying to get it done, and we forget that there's this other person that's actually going to be the one paying for it, right? You see how that happens with other agents? I'm sure it's never happened to you guys. Do you guys see how that happens?
Yeah,
yes, where they start, hey, let's just do this, let's just do that, let's just waive this, let's just waive that. Well, have you ever had a client tell you that it seems like you're working for the other side? You ever had that happen?
Yes, that has happened to me before.
I tell you, everyone in here has it happen to them. Thank you for being brave enough to say that, but tell me what happened.
Well, it was during the inspection negotiations, and in my mind, I was just communicating back to my buyers what the seller said in the response. And I think I said something along the lines of, I don't think we're going to get anything else out of him. And my client didn't like the way I said that, and it made him feel like I was more on the seller's side than his side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that. You know, so many agents have talked to me about that, and especially some of the rookies. They talk to me about, well, you know, I was talking to the listing agent, the buyer's agent, and they told me that they weren't going to go past this number, or this is their bottom line. But when I conveyed that to my client, they said, whose side are you on? Right? So let's talk about that. How do you convey that message to your client so they know that you're 100% in their corner? What are some ideas? How do we convey that message? Andy, how do we convey that message?
So if I want my buyer to know that I'm on their side and not the seller side, or vice versa, when I present the inspection response to the sellers, I really try and work them over. And then I let the buyer know, how hard I worked them over. And I said, we did this and this and this. And as opposed to getting the response back and saying, hey, here you go. Right? You have to tell them exactly what you did and really, let them know that you're on their side and not just like, oh, we sent a document over. We're waiting for it to come back.
So what you're saying is the story is important.
100%.
The story of how you got to hear from there is really important. Right?
And I think it's important too, like, you could do a really good job of beating the other party up, but if you don't tell your buyer that your client that, like, they're never gonna know.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's also foundational, right? By the time you get to that point where you're having that conversation with your clients, if you have done the right thing to establish a good trust relationship where we say it all the time, they know you, like you, and trust you, then it makes it a lot easier to have those tough conversations. So if you do the groundwork on the front end and you build that relationship up really strong, and then you do what you say, Andy, right? You do what you can to beat them up. You talk to your clients about what they did, what you did on their behalf. If you've built that relationship already, then it's just so much easier to get past that. Mm-hmm. And so it's foundational what we do, right? So I think that's a big thing.
Yeah. Anybody else have something to say about that?
Yeah, another thing I'd like to say about that is you also have to explain to them how things work, like your clients as well. Aside from explaining, what you've done, you can also talk to them about what they're really expecting from this. We can shoot for the moon and the stars, but if they have, ultimately the buyer is going to be the one making the decision whether it's satisfactory for them or not. And if it's not, then it's just something that we couldn't agree on, and we can move on.
Yeah, I think that's all good. I'll oftentimes say, I'll come up and say, hey, I got some good news and I got some bad news. Bad news is that this is where they told me their bottom line was. The good news is we have options, right? We have options. Our options are to say, okay, we'll accept it. Another one is to tell them, go away, we're out of here. Or we can renegotiate. We can try to keep negotiating, right? When we give them options, I think a lot of times your clients are going to know that you are on their side. When you tell them this is their bottom line, it's like, hey, you believe them. They just said it. I don't know if it's true or not, but you just believe them. Why did you just believe them? Right? When you give them options, they're going to go, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. Because you might win or lose this house based upon what you're going to say next. Right? That's why you need to get them options. Because if you say, hey, this is it. This is the best that they're going to do. That's what they told me. Who knows? Maybe you could have got another 10,000 bucks. You also might really tick off your clients. And they might not even negotiate again. They might just back out. And then they loved that home and they backed out because of an emotional reason. And now, instead of being able to buy this home, what are they going to do? They're going to look around for 20, 30 more homes. And every home they look at, they're going to compare it to the one that they lost for $10,000 or something. Guys, a lot of times it's not about that $10,000. A lot of times it's getting them the home that they love. And we have to understand that. As the emotional leaders of a home sale, we have to understand that there's more in jeopardy than just 10,000 bucks or 20,000, whatever it might be. Sometimes I see people making emotional decisions over something like 500 bucks. I had a deal almost fall apart one time. Get this, it's because of a welcome mat. A welcome mat and who it belonged to. I represented the seller, and that seller was taking that welcome mat, and the buyer called me up beforehand. He said, you better make sure that that welcome mat is part of it, because that's one of the reasons I bought that house. I said, a welcome mat? She said, yeah. And I started, okay, where am I going to find this welcome mat just in case? Can't find that welcome mat. Okay, Mr. Seller, I got to have that welcome mat. You never know what you're going to lose a deal over, right? And when it comes down to, it's your client's decision, Chris. Mm-hmm. It's always your client's decision. They get to decide what's too much for them and what they're going to accept. If you don't let it seem that way to them, if they don't know that for a fact, they're going to think you're representing the wrong side. Okay? It's a big lesson to learn. It's going to happen to you in your career. It's going to happen to you where you get that look from them like, you're going to think, oh, shoot, I presented that wrong. I better correct that right now. Okay? What are some items that you can negotiate when you're trying to win in a multiple offer situation? Someone give me an idea.
Inspection contingency.
What do you mean about that?
If your clients are willing to waive their inspection contingency, we can present them with options either to do a pre-inspection on the home so they can feel like they're walking into a safe home, and as well as being a little bit more competitive by waiving your inspection.
At least they'll know what they're getting into, right?
Right.
Or else you can just say no inspection. Right? They have that right. Yeah.
On Jorge's note, you can also reduce the number of days on the inspection contingency. Right? Instead of doing like a 15-day period, you can do a 2-day period or a 1-day period.
Certainly.
Yeah, just make sure you're aware of how many days are on the period after you go pending.
Very good. Yeah, Haley?
You can waive an HOA review period, especially in the circumstance if the sellers have uploaded all the HOA docs preemptively before submitting an offer. If they have the resale certificate and everything already uploaded, clients can review first and then waive the HOA contingency.
Mm-hmm. It's another one to waive. What's some other things you can waive? Great.
So a big one with some risk is waiving the financing contingency, right? So each offer has a financing contingency, and this is based on whether or not we can close, and we can waive that financing contingency, which puts our offer in front of somebody else who has that hanging out there. There's a risk involved with that. That should never be done unless it's done in consultation with the lender, because you got to have the lender on board 100% to make sure. And when I've done that, that's always my first call. Hey, here's what we're talking about. Are you comfortable enough with where they're at? And it depends. Are they pre-qualified, pre-approved? Have they gone through underwriting? Or is their financial situation just strong enough that the lender is as confident as can be that that's okay to do that? And if that lender's on board, then that's something that you can do. You got to make sure you reach out to them.
Very good. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the resale certificate when it comes to your financing contingency. Do you see any reason why that could be a problem? Waiving your financing contingency when you have a condo that has a resale certificate?
Yeah, 100%. I'll let you talk about that, Andy,
Yeah.
but 100%.
So I have a great example. So the condominium building that I live in, that we own in, there's 2 units that have been on the market now. One has been on the market for a year and a half, and it's gone pending, I think, twice now. And one of those times, I know for sure, it filed a contract because the building, it's not quite non-financeable, but a lot of lenders don't want to lend there. We have too much commercial space for how much residential space there is. A lot of buyers don't know that. A lot of buyer brokers don't know that. And you probably wouldn't even know it by reviewing the resale certificate. But once a lender gets that and they review it, you're toast. So you just got to be careful with that with condos.
Very good. Yeah, condos, I do not want you to waive the resale certificate without my approval and the lender's approval. Because we need to look at it to make sure there's nothing in here that's going to get in the way. Are there any pending lawsuits? When you drove out there, did you see any trucks that have new siding? You see roofs being replaced. You see decks being replaced. Those are indicators that it may not be financeable. So you may have waived your only way to get out of this agreement, because you're not going to be able to get financing even though you have plenty of money down, even though you qualify. The building isn't financeable, and guess whose fault that's going to be? It's going to be your fault. So we got to be really careful with that. What other contingency can we waive? Chris?
The only one that's coming to mind is the earnest money. You could give up your earnest money even though it's like the scariest one.
Yeah, you can make your earnest money, you can have it delivered to the seller and make it non-refundable. So here's that's a really big one, right? That's a really big one. So here's the question. When you go ahead and deliver your earnest money to the seller, do you have any contingencies left?
No, you waive them all once you give it up.
You waive them all. Because the only reason you ever have a contingency is to get your earnest money back. So you could have all the contingencies in the world. You could say, I have financing, I have inspection, I got all these things. But here's all my earnest money. I remember the seller's not going to do anything for you because he's already got what you could have gotten back. So getting rid of the earnest money, right, making it non-refundable is a really big thing to do. That's another thing you got to talk to me first. We got to make sure it's in the right, it's for the right reasons. And we've done that plenty of times. Sometimes that's what it takes. If your person really wants the home, that's what you got to do, right? They say yes, then you go for it, but you make sure all your ducks are in a row. Make sure everything is just right. Otherwise, you could lose, and you could lose big time. All right? What's another one?
You can also talk to your buyer about negotiating price. If we can, if they're able to afford it, then we can also try and compete by upping our purchase price.
Yeah, we hear the term all the time. It's called highest and best. Highest and best, right? As much money as possible. Best offer means the least amount of contingencies, the least amount of risk for the seller, right? Title is another thing you can waive, right? Title contingency, you can waive that. Anything else that you can really waive? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, this isn't waived. This is just a negotiation tactic.
Sure.
I saw a buyer once pay part of the seller's closing costs, and the seller happened to have, it was an expensive home, so they had very high closing costs. I think they paid like $36,000 in closing costs for the seller.
Nah, that's amazing.
They really wanted the home. So
yeah, that makes a ton of sense. How about a rent back? Anyone hear about a rent back? What does a rent back mean?
Risk.
It means risk. Yeah, what are we doing?
So with the rent back, we're going to allow the sellers to stay in the house for an identified amount of time, and there's specific forms for that. And that can be rent-free, or we can charge them rent. If you're competing, you let them have it for free. And when I say risk, it's just like any landlord-tenant rule, right? If at the end of that time frame they choose not to move out, now you've got an eviction process on your hands that you're going to have to go through. So there's some risk there. But in most of those instances, it really just helps the seller out, and they appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. That's the case. I think it's important to note that it's not the typical landlord-tenant situation, right? Some of the landlords, and it all depends on when you watch this video. A few years from now, it's probably going to change. But it's not the standard where right now in some areas, you can't kick people out during the wintertime, right? When they were the owner of it, you can kick them out according to Washington state law, but then you just still have to, right? It's your home. You got to kick them out. You don't have to go through the same process. Were you going to say something?
I was also going to mention information verification periods. You can waive those and let the sellers know that your buyers are okay with what they've advertised and don't need extra time to find out if there's anything that's listed that's wrong.
Give me an idea. What is the information verification period?
So you can go back, not as an agent. As an agent, you can give your clients the resources to what they can look into. But if, for example, they listed that the home is only a satellite dish provided, and then they come in and the buyers have to do their due diligence, and if they find out that it's only Comcast that's available and there's no satellite dish, then that's something that they can potentially use to back out from contract.
Right on the money. I see it happen a lot where someone wants to make the home into some sort of business. They want to make it into a childcare, right? And the seller goes, oh yeah, it's no problem. Susie down the road, she has one too. No big deal. And then you find out there's an HOA that prohibits it, right? But you had some time to verify it, but you waived it, and now you're in trouble. Were you going to say something, Andy?
Yeah, just one other thing you can waive that I could think of. You have the seller disclosure, and you can waive the right to revoke within 3 days of going pending. You can also waive the right to a completed seller disclosure document.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I'm glad you remembered that because I'd forgotten that one. So thanks for the reminder on that one. And so you're going to have to weigh whether or not this is going to be good for your client to do. And it's ultimately whose decision?
The client.
Client's decision on whether or not they're going to do that or not. Very good. Very good. How do you present an offer to a listing agent to get your offer accepted? Give me some. What do you guys do when you're in a multiple offer situation? What are some of the cool things you've done to get yours accepted?
I think we have to come up with a plan to make sure that the buyer's able to accept with the terms, first of all, but second of all, showing the sellers that they should be confident that they will at the very end close with us. So waiving inspections if they have provided a pre-inspection or if we have done a pre-inspection ourselves, and also having additional down payment is a huge one in case the home doesn't appraise and it is a competition price. If we've overbid by $25,000, that we also, as the buyers, have a little bit of reserve to be able to cover that low appraisal money.
The AD? Yeah, go ahead.
I think a good one is just like asking the listing agent, what does the winning offer look like?
It's a big one.
And just getting more information there than taking it back to your clients and brainstorming, like, okay, this is the routes we could go, and just coming up with the best one.
Yeah, that's a good one. The seller says, hey, I need a rent back for as long as I can possibly get. I need to be able to stay here because I haven't found a home yet. What's the longest time you can give them?
60 days.
How much?
60 days. For financed offer, if it's cash, you can kind of
Cash, it doesn't matter. But otherwise, it's 59 days, right? 59 days. We oftentimes say 60, but it's 59 days. 60 days triggers the fact that it becomes an investment loan. Okay? And that's a different sort of loan. It's higher interest rate and all that sort of good stuff. So you got to be careful with what you put on there. You had something for me?
Yeah, I was just going to say, don't be afraid to call the listing agent a few times and build that relationship because they're going to remember you. I always get the compliment from listing agents that I know how to communicate, and it seems like a small thing, but there's so many agents out there who just don't pick up the phone. They'll just submit an offer without even talking to the listing agent once, and I think that's the worst way to get your offer accepted.
That's really big. You know, when I'm the listing agent and I have 10, 15 offers or something on a property, a lot of times I get offers in. I've never even talked to an agent before. Sometimes it's because they're a crappy offer. They're like, I'm never going to accept it anyway. I'll just send it in. But a lot of times they're a decent offer, right? But they've never talked to me. I have no rapport. I have no idea what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish, how much they love the home. I have nothing. But I tell you, as a buyer's agent, your goal is a lot of times when there's that many offers, you're not going to be the best offer. Someone's going to do something cooler than you did. So my job is to try to make sure I'm the one agent who gets a call. Hey, Rob, how you doing? Hey, this is Greg, the listing agent. Just want to let you know you finished 3rd out of 12, whatever. But if you did this, I might be able to get you the house. That's the call you want. That's the one that you strive for because it's too hard to get exactly the right everything each time. At least your client has the right to say yes or no, right? They can say, you know what, I'm willing to come up to $25,000 more. Let's go, I want the house. It's better than the call that says, I'm sorry, Rob, you know, you guys didn't get it. And most of the time now it's not even a call, it's an email saying, Dear John, you lost, you suck, someone did give a better term than you did. Goodbye. And what do you tell your client besides sorry? So getting to make sure you know that agent will give you that edge. Very good. Somebody else?
Yeah, I would say like call early, call often, make sure they know who you are, make sure they have your phone number, communicate with them as professionally as possible, and make it as easy as possible for them to accept your offer. Like to your point, Rob, like I had a listing one time that had like 17 offers, and people would they would just send you a link to a document and you have to go chase down. Don't do that. Like send them the document, send them the proof of funds, CC the lender on the offer so they have an easy person to reach out to. Like make it easy for them, don't make it easy for you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can say more than one thing, Haley.
I want to tell a little story really fast about why communication paid off for me.
Okay.
Keep it brief. But because I was on the phone with this listing agent 3 to 4 times before we submitted, this was a reload deal. And it was for a home in Sammamish. And if you guys are familiar with reload deals, they will accept offers verbally before they sign contracts through. So they had actually went with another offer. And my clients, after I told them that, they said, well, we'll come up to 2.7. Like, we'll do it, you know. So I just called the listing agent back. And I was like, look, I just had this conversation with my clients. Have you guys signed anything around? And she was like, no. And then I ended up winning the house for them because the listing agent liked me. And she had to go have another conversation with the other people who thought they were getting the house, which sucks. But my clients won because of the good communication.
Because the good communication. That's very good. How about your email that you send out? The email, what do you put in that email? You send an email and say, hey, here's my offer. Here you go. Or you say, hey, how's it going? This is all the things that's included. Go ahead.
It's just a real friendly and professional email, and I always include all the highlights, right? Here's why this one's good. Here's our price. Here's what we're waiving. Here's what we're willing to do. And just lay it all out in a clear summary, right? So it's easy, like Andy said, make it easy on that listing agent to look at it and go, man, he summarized everything for me. It's right here. Yeah, we can look at the 37 pages of documents, and we'll make sure that everything he says in the summary is right, but the summary lays it out and makes it easy. And, again, we talk about relationships with clients. We have to build relationships with the agents that we work with on the other side of the table as well. And so it just needs to be professional and friendly and as clear as can be.
Yeah, when we first started doing multiple offers, because they weren't even a thing for most of my career, right? When we first started doing them, what we started to notice that if we didn't label everything, the agents would totally screw it up. They wouldn't understand that you had an escalation clause. A lot of them didn't even know how to work an escalation clause, right? I did a deal with an escalator, and we got it back, even though we had other offers that escalated our offer. They didn't escalate it. They didn't know how to do it, so they didn't escalate it. We got it for the asking price. The guy's like, I just don't know how to do it. I'm like, oh, you did it exactly right, buddy. Good for you.
Thank you.
Right? If we don't have everything in there, like you waived this, you waived that, they might not even know it's a thing. How many sales does the average agent get in a year?
Something like 3,
2 or 3.
It's under 3. Just think, it could be 4 months since they've done their last deal. They don't even know what this stuff is. If you don't spell it out to them, you might lose the deal simply because they don't know the difference. That's not a good deal, right? Got to make sure they know. So put it all in an email. I think that's perfect. When you call that agent the very last time, right when you submit it, what's the one thing that you tell them real quick, because we got to end this. What's one thing you tell them to make sure they remember you? One thing.
A joke.
Joke. Nothing wrong with that.
I always tell them my name.
You just had a joke?
No, their name, my name.
I'm not just joking with you.
Thanks, Rob.
I love you, man.
Empathy.
Empathy, yes. I love you. What do you tell them?
You're talking at the very end of the conversation?
I submit the offer. Boop, email goes to Greg. Hey, just submitted an offer to you. Just want to let you know.
That I sent it over.
Sure. What do you tell them?
Same thing as Haley.
What do you tell them?
If there's anything in any part of this offer that we need to talk about, call me back and we'll talk about it.
Bam.
Can I
Boom.
change my answer?
No. What you got?
I always make this funny joke to everyone. Like, I tell my full name, about I'm Cristobal Rodriguez, by the way. And then they go, what? And I'm like, yeah, Latinos are going crazy, like naming their kids. So.
There you go. They won't forget your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do the name thing sometimes. English is George and Spanish is Jorge. Like sometimes it's I have to make the distinction. But also the same thing as Greg said. You know, if there's anything about the offer that you think your sellers want to have a discussion about, that we're open to be able to hear what they have to say.
Just let me know, right? One last thing I'm going to say before we're done here. Look to see who you know in common. If you don't know that agent, check to see who you know in common. Facebook or whatever, see if you have someone in common. Contact that person, have them help you out. All right, talking to Raintown. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.